welcome back. It's, as always, it's Mason and my wonderful assistant Nick.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, we got another great episode for you this time. One of the things that's pretty interesting, at least to me, is the way that all the learning that we've done from us recording the show and hopefully you guys too for listening is how you view the world and how the lens that you viewed certain things have changed. So, one, I think that we have some pretty good news articles today that we're going to talk about, and even our free thinking section, I think, is pretty unique. Not going to say who came up with all those ideas, but it wasn't Nick. But no, but for real, like the way that we interpret these news articles, we're going to talk about just what it is that the news is. But then when we give our opinion, it's a definitely a developed view that we've come up with. And I think it's a very positive view. I think it's a very advantageous lens to look at it through where we will break it down and instead of just getting upset or happy about the way something turned out in the news. We more see it as a learning experience. What are we going to gain from it? How does this affect us? How does this affect our lives? How does it affect, our goals and our pursuit of freedom? So, instead of just taking things at face value and getting some sort of emotional appeal from them, we can use it as a tool to learn. And if you can start to look at not just the news but things, everything in life in general through that lens, everything you do or encounter is a learning experience and you never have to be upset about it. So I think that if you're new and that's something you kind of want to learn how to do, this show can definitely teach you how to do that, because that's basically all we do is we break down things that happen in the news or in life, or just random uh, pieces of knowledge that me and Nick find interesting, and we talk about how it applies to freedom, to success, to basically just anything that you define as your personal definition of freedom. So I think that
Well, yeah. Well, what we base it off is basically how it could relate to our four principles of freedom: the freedom of finance, freedom of movement, freedom of action, and freedom of thought. So, and every time we talk about a different article, we usually hit on one of those things, how it may affect you in one of those ways, either in a good or a negative way.
yeah, that's very true. It's so, and then also one more thing with the news that I find really interesting is some days are better than others. And, some days me and Nick will spend a couple hours trying to find something good to talk about, and some days we'll find it all in a matter of 10 minutes. So, this will give you what we're talking about today, will give you a good example of how unique me and Nick's interests are. So, what we're going to talk about Voyager. It's a spacecraft that was launched into space in this back in the 70s. Then we'll talk a little bit about Huawei, and that's the Chinese company where we arrested their CFO. And then we'll talk a little about the French Revolution, and not the historic one, the one that is occurring right now over taxes. Then we'll have a quick free thinking section. But yeah, I'll start it off with the Voyager. This one caught my eye in particular because of the time frame that they're talking. This isn't something that just happened. They didn't just launch a spaceship into space recently. The Voyager 1 and 2 were launched back in, I believe it was 1977. And basically, the reason for this article is that the Voyager 2 just exited the galaxy. So, what does that mean? So, on this date, this is a quote, on this date, the steady stream of particles emitted from the sun that were being detected by the probe within the Voyager suddenly dipped. This indicated that it had crossed the heliopause, the term for that outer edge of the sun's protective bubble of particles and magnetic field. So, I guess the first thing to note here is they're saying that they have definite evidence that it's left the galaxy. But at the same time, their evidence is that the stream of particles emitted from the sun has decreased slightly.
So their only evidence that it's left the galaxy is the particles have left, but it's been out there for so long. How do they know that's just not like broken, or you know what I mean?
Right. Right. No, that's my
Like, there's no way of communicating with it efficiently.
right. No, that's what I'm saying. It's a definite question. I believe I read that it is currently 22 billion miles away, and it's been a 41-year journey. So, here's my thing. I didn't even know that they had technology that could communicate that far. You know, I know that there are some military radios that will fizzle out if there's just a small hill in the way. So, what kind of technology are they using that was created back in the 70s that is allowing us to communicate and transmit data with a piece of machinery that is 22 billion miles away? You know? I don't know if they are.
Like I don't doubt that they have the equipment to do it. I just don't see how they can know what is or isn't wrong with it, or why it jumped into the other solar system, or I don't see how they can possibly have a definite conclusion.
No, and that's why I'm going to go into my next point, and this is my synthesis on this, and it's a very unique angle, because my point is I want to question the validity of this article, and I think what a lot of people like to do is they like to question, and fight when it comes to politics, or stuff like that, where there is a controversial sides to pick, but no one wants to question mainstream, just non-partisan scientific things like this. But here's the way I look at it. I was watching this documentary on scientists in the field of law. So basically what that means is forensic scientists, and the forensic scientist is basically their key witnesses. So a lawyer will call in a key witness to give their, professional testimony on a set of evidence and say, this is based on the evidence, this is what I think could have happened based on my, professional knowledge. But here's the caveat to that. The forensic scientist would always come to a conclusion that is in line with the side of the person who paid for them. So what that means is, if the defense hired them, the evidence would suddenly lead to a conclusion of innocence. And if it was the prosecutors, it would always lead to a siding with the prosecution. And first thing is, that's very illegal. You can't coach your... They're there to tell the truth. You can't coach these scientists. Can't do anything like that. So, in other words, there's no corruption, no words being put in their mouths, but still these lawyers have never paid an expert for the quote-unquote truth and the opinion not sided with their case. What does this mean?
Well, they just know how to twist it the right way.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, lawyers are doing the same thing. Lawyers are getting paid to defend or prosecute, and it's the same case, the same level of facts, and they're picking a side. So you think that these scientists are not, and this is what it comes down to, and this is why I'm saying that it's not corruption. It's not corruption. What it comes down to is these scientists are the money that they're making is their well-being, their salary. That's how they make a living, is off this money. So why would, if they were to come out there and give testimony that just ruined the person that paid them case, they just wouldn't get hired back next time. So you almost can't blame them for this. But here's the connection. It goes to what's the difference between a forensic scientist and an interstellar scientist. You know what I mean? If physicist or an interstellar scientist does a study and comes up with no results, do they get the $1 million funding the next time around, or does someone else get the funding? You know what I mean? There's just the fact is that research and studies are paid for by somebody, and inherently that somebody that pays them to do the study is looking for a certain outcome, a certain result. And these scientists know that. And so for these scientists who have spent 41 years getting paid to, monitor these Voyager systems, if they just said, oh, they're too far and we've lost contact with them, and there's nothing more to gain, they'd be out of a job. The Voyagers were created to monitor Jupiter, Saturn, a couple of those outer planets, and that's like what their purpose was, and they did that a long time ago. So the question is, the questions are for you to pose on your own. I'm just saying, I have to raise my eyebrows and question when we're talking about some vast scientific accomplishment that we think a piece of metal exited our solar system. Has it? Or do we just need an article to secure the next round of funding for this 50-year-old scientific mission? I don't know.
But it's good questions to ask. That's why it's great that you always have your tinfoil hat. Always asking the questions.
Always asking. Not even the scientists are safe.
The president went to play golf in Florida. Mason's asking the right questions. Who was he playing golf with? Why did he play 9 holes instead of 18? I got you, Mason.
I'm just saying, man. It's a requirement for these scientists to produce results. They have to produce results.
Yeah.
So
no.
Why would they not produce? Why would they not produce results that validates their existence? That validates their job title? They're going to.
Well, yeah. Well, at the end of the day, no matter what study, especially when you're being funded by the government, they're gonna get funding almost guaranteed no matter what. But when it's something like that where not very many people do that kind of studies and all that, it's very easy to pivot. Because all they said is they're gonna monitor the solar system, and even if it exited our solar system, they still accomplished it. They monitored our solar system. You know what I mean? It was such a broad goal where it's easy for them just to walk away and be like, thank you for the money. We're going to keep this machine floating out there forever.
It's kind of like with like doomsday people, which I think I'm not comparing space science with doomsday people. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. But the fact remains, if there's really that many doomsday possibilities out there, you're telling me that not one of them is... If there are really that many that exist, you're telling me that chance just hasn't set one of them off and, destroyed our Earth? You know what I mean? It's just like, is it all just made up nonsense? I don't know. They say there's a huge volcano in Yosemite that could destroy the world. They say there's this. They say we're waiting for a world-altering earthquake. They say there's all these different possibilities. Asteroids are barely missing us. Every couple of years they'll say an asteroid barely missed Earth. All I'm saying is, if all this stuff was true, and there was literally a 5% chance that some of these things could happen, well, you add them all up, and don't we have a 100% chance by now that the world's been destroyed?
All right. All right, so we'll talk about this real briefly, just so we can get on to the next topic. But in my opinion, I don't think the doomsday is going to be something that's all of a sudden that happens. It's going to be just like the slow decay of humans is just going to happen. I don't think anything drastic is going to happen.
Never know, man.
I don't think it's going to be an asteroid.
You never know.
Yeah, that's right. We
But
never know, but hey, as far as I can tell, we have a space Voyager out there that's 22 billion miles
light
away.
years away.
So, light years away. Okay.
No, I think it's
light years
it's
away.
miles, but regardless, it's a lot.
Regardless, well, so that'll keep an eye out. Let us know if we have a big asteroid heading our way.
Right.
Problem solved.
All right. Very good. Optimism. Okay, next topic. Hue and the French Revolution. We'll start with Hue. They're two, but they're kind of related. So, first, the United States of America requested that Canada arrest the CFO of Hue, Meng Wanzhou. And the accusations, though not publicly admitted, are that potentially this company that is basically the Apple of China violated trade controls and placed on Cuba, Iran, and Syria, meaning they're basically trading with Cuba, Iran, and Syria against the wishes of the United States. So first of all, I guess the first question begs, how can we do that when she's not American? So why is she being held to American laws? First question, whatever. That's some political nonsense, but we did it. And I think that there is some positive precedent here, regardless of what you think about should we be doing it. The idea is that this is America, another example of America stepping up its game to shake up this whole ghost second Cold War fight that we've been having with China. And we're demanding that they be scrutinized in public. So until now, if you guys haven't noticed, until now, China's done a lot of really shady stuff, but it's been in the shadows. It's been hidden from the scrutiny of the public, and especially of its own state-controlled media. So basically, its own people have no idea what it's doing internationally, because there's just their media is state-controlled, one, and two, what they do is so discreet that there's not a big enough international outroar to where there's pretty much any real media generated on it at all. And now they're being boldly called out. First with the fentanyl, we talked about that last time, and now with some of their trade practices. And here's the thing about China. Their number one priority is international legitimacy. I wouldn't even say it's a priority. I would say that their number one goal is international legitimacy. So after World War II, they felt really embarrassed. And what they've done to try to rectify that embarrassment is they want to become a world power. That's why they're, running their country into the ground, trying to industrialized, trying to get a foot up in the world. And now they are a world power. I hand it to them. They are a world power. But their number one goal is to be seen as not, some second-rate country with a huge population. They want to be seen as a world power. And up until now, they've been able to do things like, potentially make money off fentanyl sales and using shady trade practices to take advantage of the international system. But now we're using their biggest goal against them, They want international legitimacy. All right, we'll call you out. We'll tell the world in public what you're doing that is, wrong, and you're going to be forced to make a decision. Do you want to continue to make the economic gain you're getting from these unfair practices, or do you want to do what's right in the eyes of the international community? And I think this is one of the smartest moves we've done in a while because this is something that actually is working. You saw it work with fentanyl. You saw it work. So, maybe it'll work again. What do you think, Nick? Over to you, Nick.
All right. Well, so my opinion on the whole idea of calling them out on like the world stage, I get that. It helps persuade them to lean a different way or change their mind on something. But I don't know. My whole problem with that is, yeah, China does some messed up stuff, but there's countries that do way worse things that don't even get mentioned.
Right. You're right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I just feel like at the end of the day, what's more important, the big country that does something bad or the really small country that does something like absolutely terrible?
Right. It's
I know there's really no like good answer like why not both, but I don't know, it seems like we prioritize knocking down China just because China's technically not our ally in the.
Right, it's because China's become a world power. So that's the whole thing. We talked about with the fentanyl
thing. Feel threatened.
Right. We talked about with the whole fentanyl thing is that we did give them quote unquote unfair trade advantages when they were a smaller country. But now that they're, a threat to us per se, now we want to eliminate these trade advantages. But regardless, the other option is that, we're just trying to squelch some of our biggest competition because Huawei is making they're making about half as much money as Apple. Apple's making like $260 billion in profit a year. They're making like $100 billion. So they're a challenger, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're just trying to squelch some of our challenge. Because if you don't think that Apple does some shady stuff, then you'd be wrong. Because I'm pretty sure that one of the rare earth metals found inside all Apple phones is primarily found in deep jungle mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is not democratic and it's not a republic, and it is in the Congo rainforest. So yes, that's where they get some of their rare earth metals. If you don't think that they have unfair practices, then you'd be wrong. I mean, I really don't want to be a pessimist, and a big part of like this show is to say that success is the goal, and we'll talk about it later. But I think as long as you're not absolutely hurting somebody, nothing wrong with being a winner. So, plus no one's complaining about Apple. No one's upset that Apple is giving us iPhones. But if you don't think that there's some child labor in the jungles of the Congo to create these phones, then you'd be wrong. I don't know. Anything on that, Nick? Or you're just gonna let me get away with that level of a conspiracy theory with no rebuttal?
Well, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's fact that these large companies have factories in some third world countries where even little kids are working on their stuff. You know what I mean?
I do.
We all know it's true.
It's crazy.
But yeah, everyone's still gonna buy the new iPhone. Everyone's still gonna buy those Nikes.
That's crazy stuff.
And everyone will get those knockoffs from China. It's always gonna be around. I know.
All right.
All that stuff's just crazy to me.
Okay, on to France. France, this one's huge. So President Macron initiates a new carbon tax, basically a tax on fossil fuels, to you quote unquote make an environmental push to protect the environment and initiate a change of bad habits through economic pressure. So basically, he wanted to increase the tax percent by 23%, which, to give you some idea of what that means, for diesel in particular, 60%,
It's a lot
60%
of
of the
money.
cost of your fuel, if you're using diesel, is already from taxes. So what does this mean? We're going to have 83% of the cost, meaning 83 cents on the dollar, is simply taxes and not even the cost of the fuel. So again, Macron says it was to change habits of people, and yeah, you might drive less if you can't afford gas, or you might just be screwed. So here's my take on it. I believe in the free markets. I personally don't like huge subsidies, and because it basically makes companies monopolistic. So when you have these huge subsidies, they basically inhibit entry of smaller businesses into the field. When you have these certain companies getting like subsidies, so then yeah, other smaller companies, it's like a barrier to entry for them. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real. If we can put a man on the moon, we can make an engine that gets 100 miles in a gallon. Or we can create a new option of vehicle that doesn't use fossil fuels. We have the technology, but why don't we? Because these oil companies and these car companies have such a huge grip on the market, on politics, and it's not just corruption. They just are so ingrained into our culture of society that people want to have the biggest, most diesel-licious truck out there. It's what they want. But
Well,
what?
I was just I was talking to my brother earlier today just about this subject, where as a total society we are slowly moving away from these, like the diesel and the gasoline and all that.
Right.
But right now it's just not worth it. Like you and I, we like the free market, so the amount of electric cars is growing, but it's gonna happen at its own pace. If you try to make that pace happen 10 times quicker, you're just gonna cause damage, really,
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is that until they're
to, like you said, the small businesses and the
right, and
consumers.
that's my point. Is until there's a legitimate alternative option readily available, all it's going to do is screw people over and make them have to either, one, just never drive, or two, it's going to actually hurt them. It's going to inhibit their ability to, get to work and stuff, or at least in theory. So here's the important part about both these stories. Nothing to do with the actual stories, what I think is very interesting. I think that both these stories show that the public and the people of all of the world's great nations are becoming more awakened, and they're becoming, more educated and starting to see what's going on around them, and they're starting to take a stance and have an opinion and not just say that's the way things are, and or just be oblivious to what's going on around them. They're realizing it, and they're taking a stance. People are realizing the type of trade practices China is doing, and they're realizing how China uses, the discretion to stay out of the crosshairs. That's changing. People, and for France, this is probably one of, if not the only, recent example of people in the Western world speaking up and changing the will of the government. I think this is huge. This is one of the most exciting precedents I've seen in a long time. The people, there's the fact, the people still have the power. They just have to be willing to use it. You know, America, we have the power to do it.
Mm-hmm.
People are so
Yeah.
disheartened because of, oh, big business or big government. I don't even vote because it's not going to do anything. The people of France, these are the same French that surrendered to the Nazis. They just repealed a government tax through opposition and maybe a little bit of violence, but we won't go there. But you know what I mean? That they did it, and they succeeded over a tax.
Yeah.
What could we do over
No.
a bigger issue?
Yeah, well, it sets a great precedent just in general on the world stage that the idea of you and your neighbors coming together and fighting for a common goal in your local government, state government, national government, that it might actually lead to somewhere. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people lost faith in that sort of idea. Like, no one actually thinks that setting up and having protests or organizing a protest would actually make a difference.
Right. People think that you need to have
but they made it work over.
People think you need to have a majority to make a difference, and that's not true. You look at the civil rights movement, you look at Gandhi. These people didn't have 80% of the population. They had a very small percentage of the population. You look at the LGBTQ. I'm sorry, I don't know it completely, but you look at them. What percentage of the population is gay? I'm not gay. Nick, are you gay? That's 0% of us two. There's not that many gay people in this country. What would you say? 5% of the country? I think that's wildly huge. 1% of the country is gay?
No, I think way more than that. I think it's probably 10, 15.
Okay, 10% of the country is gay. No way. Regardless, doesn't matter. We can fact check this later.
Doesn't matter.
We'll bring it up next episode. But regardless of that, also, what is it, like 0.01% of the country is transgender? My point is, look at how small that percentage is. It's definitely not a majority, and they're making huge movements. They're making a huge difference for their cause, at least a huge statement on the international scene. So if they're able to do that with a definite minority, what could you do when I think it's something like 70% of the country thinks that our government needs some changes and is a little bit corrupt and probably can use some fixing? You know what I mean? If 2% of the country can be all over the news, what could 50, if we got 30% of the country to actually stand up and say we want some change, we want some things to start going a different way, we want to get more respectable leaders in Congress and for president, for those of you that feel that way, all of it. What if we did that? What would it take? How many people would it take? I'm not here trying to start a movement, but I kind of am. I kind of hope someone else starts the movement, but I would love to be part of it. And I think we're quite on our way to getting there. What do you think, Nick? You ready to start a revolution?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't think we're there yet. I don't know. I like the way the U.S. is right now.
You like?
It's not half bad.
Oh, you're cool with our current international setup or national setup?
Yeah. I don't have too many complaints. I have some complaints, but I don't think we're at revolution point yet.
Oh, I didn't say revolution. You can make change without having a violent revolution. Oh, but I did ask you if you wanted to start a revolution. Revolution of the mind. Revolution of the pen.
Yeah.
Come on, Nick. Don't you be getting my house raided by the FBI over some...
You're the... If anyone's going to get your house raided, it's going to be yourself and your tinfoil hat.
And my what? Oh, my tinfoil hat.
Tinfoil hat.
Could you imagine? I mean, what is the line? I understand terrorism. You definitely get rated for. I mean, do you even? You they make it seem that way. Is that even the case?
I know saying something about like a threatening thing about the president might get you talked to.
But that's usually public. My question is, do they really have as strong of a surveillance force as they say they do? Or you know what? I don't even want to get into it, man. I really don't want to get into it. We'll do a whole episode. We'll do a whole episode where we educate ourselves on government surveillance, get a little NSA action in, and we'll go from there. Because I really want to get into it, but we can't right now. Should we get into save it for a rainy day? Should we get into the free thinking segment?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
If you guys don't know, free thinking segment is where we really hit it home with one, our and two, freedom empowered principles. And this is what I was thinking about today. I was thinking about connections. You guys know that one of the three things it takes to be successful is confidence, work ethic, social connections, and social skills. So, connections is huge. We know they're important. Is it okay to use people to build connections with people for strictly business purposes? And if I took a general consensus from the public, I'd say no, because I feel like what I hear a lot is a lot of excuses of people saying that, not excuses, but they're saying that, like, I'm not that kind of person. I have morals. I don't like using people. I only like building friendships with people that are very similar to me and I get along with, and we have a lot in common. And I guess the question is cultivating a relationship with someone specifically for a business purpose a bad thing? I don't know. What do you think, Nicola?
I don't think it's bad.
Some people do.
I think every relationship you build with someone is situational.
Right. But I'm just letting you know what people think. And it kind of leads into my second question is there a certain level of success that denotes a loss of morals? It seems like people inherently think that those that are massively successful somehow had to have had some skeletons in their closet or thrown somebody under the bus to become that massively successful.
Well, whenever I hear someone say something like that or anything like that, I think they're just jealous of what they have, and or they're just jealous what one person has and that they don't have the same things.
That's I mean,
So they have to come up with a reason why they are more successful than they are.
all right. I feel like
They come up with the
people.
idea that they cheated the system or cheated someone.
I feel like there's a lot of people who legitimately take pride in not being successful. I think they say that they have a higher set of moral values and they don't have material motivation, and therefore imply that them being less successful is somehow a designator for them being more morally sound, more woke. I mean, if you think about it, a very rough example is hippies. You know what I mean? Why can't you be a Joe Rogan? Why can't you be a rich pothead? What's wrong with that? But no, if you're going to be a pothead, you want to be a true hippie, you want to be true one with nature, you want to be true a man of the people, you got to live out of your car and wear drug rugs and grow out your hair and not be rich. I don't know. Very interesting question. It's crazy how success has been so vilified. Specifically monetary success.
Yeah.
Specifically monetary success. I mean, what's wrong with achieving monetary success? I don't know. Because here's the thing. When you live in a capitalistic society, and that's why, if you guys haven't realized yet, me and Nick are pro-capitalist. I mean, there's a conversation to be had about the specifics, but we believe in capitalism. Is that
Mm-hmm.
in order to be successful in a capitalistic society, you have to provide some sort of value to people. You know what I mean? You have to. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
If you're selling a product, that product has to provide a value to the other person. And yeah, scams might work for a time, but in the end, they're always going to fail because they don't provide that value. Maybe you could, what a scam is, the definition of a scam is you're, you're pulling the wool over someone's eyes and convincing them that you're providing a value that you're not actually providing. So the end result is the same. They still think they're getting the value, just in the end, they're actually not. And when they see through your scam, they realize that they're not getting that value, and then your scam falls through. But that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, in order to be successful, you have to provide, in a capitalist society, you have to provide value to somebody. And if you're providing someone that value and helping them out, how is that negative in any way? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, like you said, we're pro-capitalist.
Right.
I think I don't want to say that ends justify the means, but there's a lot of bigger companies out there that do a lot of great things. Make it cheaper to have your phone, have internet, or whatever you wanna. Like most of the world doesn't have internet, but everyone hates the
Right.
big internet companies. Even though without them, we'd be lost.
No, completely.
I imagine a day in the United States no one has
What do we
internet.
even do? No,
It
but
would go crazy.
so that's that's an interesting side topic is we've definitely changed our society where it's dependent on the internet, where some of the processes that we had in place in the past to make society function without internet don't exist anymore. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You know, there's a lot of jobs they would have sign out boards and things like that, so you know where people are at. You had to like sign stuff out. You had to have runners to run documents and things like that. Those don't exist anymore. So if the internet did go down, I don't know if we'd be able to fully function. And
Yeah, I don't think we could.
and the correlation here, taking it back to relationships, is you know I wouldn't say tell someone that they're your best friend just to squeeze a connection out of them and then use them and never talk to them again. That's a scam. That's the same thing. You apply the same thing as business. That is a scam of a relationship. I'm not saying do that because they'll see through it and it'll fall through. But I think that if you create a relationship with somebody else, that the focal point of your relationship is business related, you know, what's wrong with that? You don't have to only be nice to people that you want to, hang out with and, you know, spend time with on the weekends. Why can't you have a relationship with someone where the purpose of that relationship is, a business related entity? And to be completely honest, to be friends with someone that's different than you, that has a different set of knowledge and skills, is a good thing. They balance you out. One, you can learn from them, and two, they can help you out. So I'd honestly almost say it's a good thing to be friends with people that are different than you, that maybe you wouldn't hang out with on a Friday night, but at the same time they add a value to your life, you add a value to their life, and you can learn from each other, you know? So what if you don't want to go out?
Yeah, well, it helps broaden your knowledge. It helps give you perspective in other
Right.
aspects of your life. Makes you more knowledgeable, which at the end of the day will make you more likely to
And to be
succeed.
completely honest, do you even want the friend that is always that you get along with very well, but you just want to hang out with them? Do you want the friend who just says, "Hey, we should, you know, go out and have beers because we have a lot in common, and I don't want to work. I just want to hang out with you." Especially if you've been listening to this show and we lit that spark, we flipped that switch. You know what I mean? Like, me and Nick have a special relationship. We like each other, and we also have similar interests and are business partners. But, like, there's a lot of you.
What he means by that is he likes me, and
Yeah,
I think
okay.
he's okay.
That's fine. But the scam hasn't fallen through with Nick yet. He doesn't realize I'm just using him yet. But it might never fall through. But you know what I mean? Like, if you've flipped a switch and you're starting to change your priorities and change your goals and change the way you look at life and you're trying to set yourself free, maybe you need to think about getting some new friends. Maybe, having those old friends that just want to hang out with you aren't the right friends. Maybe you need to find friends that have a similar goal as you, or at least have the same motivation as you, to where they're going to push you. They're going to push you. They might not invite you out for beers. They're going to push you to work on a Friday night, work on your day off, and try to achieve something. I think that's very beneficial.
I agree. I think finding someone who will motivate you and push you to pursue your personal interest or your own business or anything in relation to your own personal freedom. I think that's one of the most important things you can have.
Right.
It's a good relationship to have with someone who just constantly pushes you to strive to be your best.
Right. I agree. And at the end of the day, guys, the goal in life, at least to me, is you got to make it to the other side of this game. This big convoluted game called life, and you got to be happy and satisfied with what you did, what you accomplished, and where you ended up on the other side. So, whatever it takes to get you there. And yeah, you need to have those people around you that, make you happy and take the stress away, and you can unwind with and have those enjoyable moments in life. But at the same time, you need those people that help you move in the right direction, that help you progress, that help you, take it to the next level and achieve your goals. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to remember all the times that you were relaxing, throwing back beers with your buddies. At the end of the day, you're going to remember, what did you achieve? What did you accomplish? What did you provide for your family? How well did you set up your kids for success? And for some people, how long will your name be remembered in history? You know what I mean? So, it's just something you got to think about.
It's different for everyone.
There's something you got to think about.
Everyone has a different goal in life.
Yep. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be about wrapping it up for us. Thanks for listening. Get in contact with us. Join our group. Let's start communicating. I might not have the same ideas and likes and dislikes as some of you, but I guarantee you there's something that I can learn from you, and there's something that you can learn from us. So let's start communicating. Let's hop on that Facebook group, or just, reach out and start to build that network of people that start pushing us into a life of success. Yeah, That wraps it up for me. Anything, Nick?
No, I'm all good over here.
Good to go. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.